Tonight, shocking testimony heard at the trial for a young black man allegedly beaten by an off-duty Toronto police officer and his brother. The court hearing the off-duty officer was the one that put Devontae Miller in handcuffs the night of the alleged assault. We'll have more from today's testimony. Plus,
turned all the lights off and locked our bedroom doors. We were scared.
residents woke to the sound of gunshots. A 21-year-old man is shot and killed in an apartment stairwell overnight. And
having somewhere where you can get food every day, it made me feel like I had a home.
we'll take you to Eva's Taste Matters, a celebration of good eats for a good cause. Good evening, I'm Mike Wise. There were gasps in an Oshawa courtroom today at the trial for a Toronto police officer and his brother accused of viciously beating Devontae Miller. Now, he was supposed to take to the stand, but as Lorenda Redekop tells us, his defense lawyers were shocked when a Durham police constable offered some testimony.
Devontae Miller arrived in court today expecting to testify. So far, we've only heard from him in his 911 call.
Hello?
Hello, 911?
Hi, where do you need the police?
Hello?
At that point, Michael Theriault, the off-duty Toronto police officer charged, takes the phone. His brother, co-accused Christian Theriault, was already on the line with 911, saying they'd chased one of two people who had broken into their truck, that the person fought with them, and now they had him restrained. Constable Barbara Zabdir was one of the first officers to arrive on scene that night. She says when she got there, she already knew about the allegation of people breaking into cars. She says on the driveway, she saw a black man, face down, blood coming from his eye. She says she knew the white man holding him down was an off-duty police officer and told the court, "I gave my handcuffs to him because space was very limited." That would mean Michael Theriault is the one who handcuffed Devontae Miller. She remembers walking Miller under arrest to the ambulance. "He told me that we got the wrong guy. I told him we always do." Constable Zabdir says she meant that suspects say that all the time. She later testified that when she arrived, Miller was screaming that he was beat up by the Theriaults and that they hit him with something. Both defense lawyers were shocked by this revelation, as it never came up at the preliminary inquiry. Alan Gold told her, "You tell His Honor why you did not mention this new memory in your previous conversations," then said, "Because you never had this memory." Zabdir also acknowledged she's paid attention to the news about this case, something witnesses are told not to do. Another Durham police officer also testified. Constable Sean McQuoid said he took an official statement from Michael Theriault asking, "Did you identify yourself as a police officer?" The answer, "No, I did not have a chance to. Me and my brother were fighting for our lives. When I did advise him he was under arrest, he did not know I was a police officer." The officer testified he thought that answer would determine whether the police watchdog, the SIU, should be called. That didn't happen until months later, and it came from Miller's lawyer. Miller is expected to testify tomorrow. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Oshawa.
Toronto police continuing to investigate the city's latest murder. Someone shot and killed a 21-year-old man in an apartment building in East York overnight. Shannon Martin has the latest from the scene at Dawes Road and Danforth.
A gruesome sight outside this East End apartment complex as police remove the body of the city's latest homicide victim, 21-year-old Warren Pearson.
I never heard gunshots before in my life.
It was just after 1 a.m., she says, when she and her sister heard 3 shots.
We both were looking outside. We turned all the lights off and locked our bedroom doors. We were scared.
Homicide detectives spent all day in and out of the 15-story building. Several shell casings were found, but no gun.
We know from just a brief review of the closed-circuit TV here that there were individuals in the lobby milling about.
That footage, not yet released by police, was recorded around 12:45. Pearson met someone in the building. His body would be found by a resident hours later in this stairwell.
It could have been a drug deal gone bad, or it could have been, who knows, it could have been just an innocent person.
You see people that are on drugs hanging around, but that's about it. They don't bother you. You go on, you do your own thing, but to hear this is scary. You didn't think it was going to happen so close to home.
So you've lived here 2 years?
This father of 4 says there's often trouble and he's had enough. How does that make you feel, you're a dad?
You know, it's not safe. This place is not safe anymore. And it's not the first time that incident happened. There's so many issues going on. So the only option I have, just move this somewhere else.
Police went door to door talking to residents, hoping to find more witnesses, and they also canvassed the neighborhood, hoping to find more footage. Anyone with information is asked to call police. Shannon Martin, CBC News, Toronto.
A man was found dead in a garage that caught fire in Mississauga today. Firefighters were called to the detached garage near Cawthra and the QEW just before 1 this afternoon. The garage was fully engulfed when they arrived, but they were able to put it out quickly, and that's when they found the man inside. He was pronounced dead on the scene. The cause of the fire isn't known. The Ontario Fire Marshal is expected to investigate. The holiday season is about to kick off, and with that comes parties, food, and often a lot of drinking. Mothers Against Drunk Driving kicked off their Red Ribbon campaign today. Now, Toronto's police chief hopes it helps bring awareness to drinking and driving around this time of year.
When we talk about the most avoidable criminal offense in the criminal code, that if impaired operating for a motor vehicle, we still have to hit that message out loud and clear as much as we possibly can to reduce the loss of life.
In the past year, Toronto saw around 926 impaired driving charges, with 2 deaths and 6 people injured. The OPP says it investigated 36 deaths that were the result of impaired driving. Project Red Ribbon asks drivers to show their commitment to driving sober by tying a red ribbon to their vehicles, keychains, purses, or backpacks. And on any given night, there are about 2,000 homeless young people on Toronto streets. For the past 25 years, a lucky number of them have sought help from Eva's Place, a shelter in North York. Tonight, it held its annual fundraiser aimed at helping them find a place to stay and to get a healthy, nutritious meal. Raquel DeYoung was there.
There were culinary delights everywhere you turned, hundreds coming out to do some taste testing in support of Eva's Place. Eva Smith, the woman who started it all, has long passed. Her impact, though, still strongly felt.
I need to share with you guys about me.
Chef Miles Chalk used to stay at the shelter, first entering its doors at 16.
And I came home one day and to find that my mother had left.
He says Eva's Place gave him the support he needed. Then there was the food.
And at the time, you don't really appreciate it, but it's something that's a huge deal. You know, having somewhere where you can get food every day it made me feel like I had a home.
The money from tonight's event will go towards providing healthy meals for the shelter's youth. In Toronto, numbers show more youth are going hungry compared to last year.
A report released yesterday by the Daily Bread Food Bank showed food bank use has increased by 4%, with 25% of parents saying their kids go hungry at least once a month.
We're with adolescents, and their bodies are growing and their minds are growing, and it is really important that they have access to nutritious, healthy, regular food.
That's why Chalk started a program at the shelter teaching transitional youths how to cook for themselves.
I struggled with once you're out on your own is food, because it's so easy to buy processed food that's so expensive, but to cook the vegetables and things like that is unless you're taught, you don't know.
Tonight's event aims to raise $175,000, enough to provide 75,000 nutritious meals. Kelda Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
Colette Kennedy's here with a first look at the forecast. What can we say? Reality hits tomorrow morning. It's cold.
Yeah, it is really time for us to take charge of things and make sure. I know we've been saying this a few times kind of subtly. Really, probably time for the winter coat. Take charge of things and make sure you have everything prepared and laid out for you tomorrow morning. And I'm going to show you why. It's not just the temperatures, it's the fact that there'll be enough of a wind that now we're ready to talk wind chill. Well, maybe we're not ready, but we need to talk wind chill. So overnight tonight, watching these temperatures fall off, we do go in many cases below freezing, so -1 for Toronto, and then you factor in the winds, and I'm going to show you what that feels like. But I also just want to show you that tomorrow, even into the afternoon, 3 to 4 degrees, kind of the best we'll do, and then into Thursday morning, back down close to freezing, and we're going to mix some precip in there as well. And I say precip because it's not just going to be rain. We're going to see some wet flurries in there too. So the wind chill, this is for tomorrow morning in terms of how it's going to feel, and in many cases, I think it's going to drop to about -7. So that's what I want you to be prepared for tomorrow morning. Tomorrow, most of the day is dry, but after a few flurries tonight, as we get into tomorrow evening, that's when we're going to see this kind of wintry mix coming in. It should be light in nature, but by the time we get to Thursday morning, we may have a little bit of accumulation. I'm going to show you what I mean coming up in the show. Just another look at those temperatures, though. Again, it's going to feel colder than the -1 and then 4 degrees. That's the best we're going to do tomorrow afternoon, Mike.
I don't know if I should say thank you, but thank you, Colette.
I'll say you're welcome, but I don't mean it either.
Oh, we're going to get an official update tomorrow on the status of Ontario's finances. And the Ford government is signaling that the picture is much brighter than the one they painted when they first took office. Lisa Shing explains.
Our province is absolutely booming right now.
Premier Doug Ford sets the stage for a rosier fiscal outlook.
Hundreds of companies now know that Ontario is open for business. And when that happens, Mr. Speaker, guess what? We get more revenues up to the provincial coffers.
That higher than expected revenue is giving the government more leeway to implement fewer cuts this year.
I think it'll be a good news day for the people of Ontario.
Government House Leader Paul Calandra wouldn't give specifics of what's in the fall economic statement, but says it'll likely be a departure from the austerity measures the PCs became known for since they came into power. They warned of a $15 billion deficit. As of September this year, the actual deficit was shown to be half of that.
Because of a strong economy, because of finding efficiencies, and all in the context of an increased spending in healthcare and education.
While spending in those areas has increased, it doesn't match population growth and inflation. The opposition will be watching to see if that changes.
It's an opportunity for them to change direction and actually start funding the programs that Ontarians should be able to rely on.
And while there's an effort to change the tone in the legislature and of the government, the song remains the same.
Last year's economic update included several controversial moves, including scrapping the Environmental Commissioner, the French Language Services Commissioner, and the Child and Youth Advocate. But considering Ford's low polling numbers, expect tomorrow's mini budget to have a new tone, a more friendly tone, one the government hopes will resonate with voters. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
That was my life. So now they're taking my life from me, and I cannot kill anything that it's alive.
An elderly woman with a love for gardening says her condo board is wrongfully making her give up a hobby that's important to her. I'm Talia Ricci, and coming up, we'll tell you about how this situation has escalated to a legal battle.
Barrie police are warning parents to double-check what's left of their kids' Halloween candy after a sewing needle was found inside a chocolate bar. Investigators say a mother called police after her child bit into this Mr. Big bar. Thankfully, the child was not injured. Police are now urging all parents to take a second look at any remaining Halloween candy that was brought home last week. A Toronto woman says her townhouse condo board is forcing her to dig up her garden, something she has cultivated plant by plant for decades. If she doesn't give it up, she's being told she'll face tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees. Talia Ricci explains.
Those are the irises, they're beautiful, they're light blue.
For nearly 5 decades, this is the place Mira Ristic has called home. And some of her most cherished memories were watching her children grow alongside her beloved garden.
That was my life.
She says back in the day, residents would just ask permission in person to plant trees and bushes. But within the last couple of years, the condo board started insisting that they remove them, saying some were planted without permission.
Because that's disturbed my next neighbor view and deprive him from sunshine.
She says the demand started once her neighbor joined the board. Another complaint was that the greenery was blocking service boxes, vents, and grates. Mira got Rogers Communications to write a letter confirming that it wasn't, but the notices continued.
So now they're taking my life from me, and I cannot kill anything that is alive.
Last month, the board's lawyer said failure to comply could cost the Ristics upwards of $30,000 in legal fees. The Ristics have now hired a legal expert of their own. We spoke with a lawyer who decided to represent the Ristics after we interviewed her. She said it would be more reasonable for the building to ask the couple to get rid of their garden if they were moving out, and that the board would be hard-pressed to get a court order.
Typically, what we would do is grandfather the existing infraction and say, going forward, nobody else will be able to have a garden in their common element area. It just doesn't make sense. I mean, I can't imagine a mediator or an arbitrator or a judge saying, you've had this for 20 years and now you have to remove it.
And I lift the soil so that water can get through and the plants can have enough water.
Mira says she's not planting anything new and keeping their space maintained. But the once lush garden just isn't the same.
It's something that is beautiful.
CBC News never received a response from the condo board or property manager after several attempts to reach them. Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
Here's a live look at our chilly city tonight. It's a measly 4 degrees right now, and it's not about to get any warmer. Colette is back with your full forecast after the break.
The weather update is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
Captain John Tavares is back in the lineup tonight for the Leafs after missing 7 games with a broken finger. Leafs on a power play against LA in the first. Tavares looks here at an empty net, but the shot goes right over it. Kings would take the lead in the second, but Toronto ties it. Alex Kerfoot intercepts a pass, rips a shot right past Jonathan Quick. Third period, there's a scramble in front of the net. Austin Matthews finds the puck, his 12th goal of the season. And then just 30 seconds later, William Nylander comes in, makes a move to his backhand and roofs it. Pretty goal for Nylander with a 2-goal lead. Toronto takes it by a final score 3-1. Kelly Kennedy's back with our extended forecast. We can't say you haven't warned us. Get
Yes.
the gloves, get the hat. Now we need the scraper and the brush maybe for some snow off the car.
Yeah, exactly. I put the brush in just a couple of days ago because of what's coming for this week. And I'm going to take you through what we're going to be seeing in terms of, yes, a little wintry mix, but the colder temperatures too, those moving in tonight. So the temperature drops below freezing, but the winds make a wind chill, so that's going to feel like -7 tomorrow morning. Late Wednesday, that's when we start to get into that mix, and that lingers into Thursday. I say snow. Yeah, we might see some of these light accumulations, 1 to 3, 2 to 4 centimeters. They're not going to hang in there for the lower Great Lakes anyway. Now, more significant accumulations to the north of us may hang in there with the colder air that's going to be in place, and it's really going to get entrenched for a few days here. So our average height this time of year, we should still be around 9 degrees and 1 for the low. Those highs of 9, wow, we're not going to be seeing that. Wait till you see the 5-day forecast in terms of where those numbers are going. Now, overnight tonight, a few flurries. That's about all we would need to be concerned about. But tomorrow afternoon, clouds will be increasing. And then here we are on the doorstep of the evening hours. So for western parts of the GTA, you may see this a little earlier for that afternoon commute as it begins to move in. And it looks like some wet flurries more than the rain showers. Down around St. Catharines, Niagara Falls, it stays as rain showers. But we're more into that kind of wintry mix. If you head even towards Hamilton or towards Mississauga, around to Toronto, and certainly over towards Oshawa, that's what you can anticipate lingering into Thursday morning and then clearing out into Thursday through the day. However, the winds, as they kick up over Lake Huron and Georgian Bay, we may get some more flurries coming back late on Thursday because of some of that lake effect. It is that time of year, and that's what we're getting into. Now, in terms of accumulations, 1 to 3 centimeters in general is what we would see around Lake Ontario, but look at those more significant amounts, maybe 5 or 6 centimeters up towards Barrie. And the potential, okay, Windsor, maybe you could pick up a centimeter there. Overnight tonight, the readings here falling right off. Wind chill tomorrow morning at -5. Tomorrow, a little milder from Windsor over towards Chatham-Kent, but that mix coming in. A few flurries tonight around the GTA, and that cool start tomorrow morning, then climbing to about half of where we should be for that afternoon high before the system moves in and brings in those wet, mixed conditions Wednesday into Thursday morning. Thursday night flurries coming back at us. Friday, okay, the sky conditions improve at 1 degree for the high, and it looks like towards the end of the weekend, temperatures might come up a bit, but I peeked into Monday, and then they dive off again. So this is what we're into for a little while. We just have to be prepared.
I'll just settle and then take it as it comes. Thanks a lot, Colette.
You're welcome.
We are less than 2 weeks away from the 115th Toronto Santa Claus Parade. I'm Greg Ross. Organizers are putting the finishing touches on the 34 floats that will be showcased in the parade. Coming up, we'll give you a sneak peek.
We are 50 days away from Christmas, but less than 2 weeks away from the annual Santa Claus Parade. This marks the 115th year for the event. Today, Greg Ross visited the busy workshop getting ready for the parade. He brings us this sneak peek.
Ho, Santa! Taking a break from his workshop, Santa Claus himself, along with Mrs. Claus, stopped by parade headquarters in Toronto to see how things are going.
Guess what? This is my 115th parade.
While Santa has been around for them all, this will be the 50th for creative director Alfred Iannarelli.
People call you Alf for short.
Yes, Alf, not Elf.
For the past year, he's been overseeing the construction of 34 floats that will be showcased in this year's parade.
There's giant candy canes, there's giant Christmas ornaments, gingerbread people, everything that people think about as Christmas.
There's even a float honoring the Raptors championship.
On the front of this float is going to be a large replica of the Larry O'Brien trophy.
But the most important float will be the one that comes last, and that, of course, is Santa's float.
I remember being a kid at the parade, and this is the one you wait for. It's the last float, Santa Claus. You know Santa's coming to town when you see Santa here on this float.
Absolutely, and this is the biggest float in the parade every year.
There'll be plenty of kids taking part in the parade as well and wearing colorful costumes.
So what are you supposed to be over here?
Gingerbread man. I'm gonna be a parka kid.
Who's the better elf?
Me. No. Me. No. Me. No. Me. No.
And of course, those kids will be doing a lot of this.
I'm gonna wave and smile.
So show us how you're going to wave and smile.
Parade goers should be aware of a slight change to the parade route this year. Instead of starting on Bloor Street West, coming across and turning here at Queen's Park, the parade will now start on Bloor Street East at Parliament. The reason for the change is because of construction happening on Bloor Street West. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Take note of that. Don't be waiting for the parade to start in the wrong part of town. If you're looking for something to ask Santa for, The Who's Pete Townsend has written his first novel. He'll be on cue tomorrow talking about the age of anxiety. You can hear about that tomorrow at 10 a.m. on CBC Radio 1. I'll see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Good night.